So welcome, community. So good to have you here for our fourth community call. And it's actually been a super long time, hasn't it, since we've been on our main stage, because last month we did something fun with the Forefront community and we're over in their virtual headquarters. And then that was March, right? Then our February call was postponed because it was the same evening as war tensions broke out. And so we decided to not have the call that day. So it's been 2 months since we've been on Discord and see some new faces in that time. I'm Kianga Davrington, and I am the founder of ACRE Invest, and we have been working as conveners for the community. For those of you who are newer to us, and yeah, so April 1st was our official kickoff of the season, and this monthly call is sometimes used to present a special guest who talks about a project that they're working on. If you've seen we have a blog on the Mirror protocol where we post either our slides, or if we have a live presentation, we've posted a presentation. So you can see that call, which was, I guess that must have been December, or maybe that was January. So this call also, hopefully all the tech works out, and we'll post the video on our Mirror blog as well. But today, I just wanted to go through a couple of things that are going on and do that briefly and give the rest of the time a chance for us to chat, folks to introduce themselves, ask questions, talk about what you're working on, and how we're going to launch 1,000 DAOs in 1,000 days. So great. All right. Thank you. Ernesto has shared his screen with the slides. So again, we are simultaneously in the main stage chat. So if you've got comments or questions as I'm going through this, drop them in the chat. And and then we'll open it up. So next slide, please. Can everyone see? If anyone's having trouble seeing or hearing, again, just drop a note in the main stage chat. So just by way of background, since I know we all got so many things going on and we get together at irregular intervals, it's probably good each time, since we have new people, to just do a brief overview. So our community launched in December of last year, December 1st, with an open call for founding members to join us on this adventure of launching 1,000 autonomous communities for regenerative economies in 1,000 days. And so that breaks down according to the schedule that you see on this slide here. And in case you're really new to Web3, this idea of organizing work in collaboration in terms of seasons is kind of caught on as a helpful way of developing a cadence, a framework for collaborating and structuring our time together. So we are in season 1, and I think if you've also been involved in a bunch of DAOs, you'll notice we've designed our seasons to be a bit longer and more spread out than you might see. I mean, some DAOs have seasons that are, 2 months long. But here, we're mindful of really the long term and a very, very, very big vision that takes a while to unpack, and that we're just at the beginning stages. I mean, this is still totally whiteboarding. I like to think of what's happening here as really socializing our vision, our hopes, our ambitions, getting to know one another, using some tokenomics, because we do have the token, and we have kind of a token gated portal and some initial assets that we've designed to facilitate the organizational work of the community. But by no means do we have things like a treasury or a full-blown governance system. So you on this call and anyone listening, this is the ground floor. This is the ground floor of being a part of something that we hope will, really make a difference imminently in the real world in terms of activating all of these different disciplines and interests and domains of expertise and interest around climate, healthcare, regenerative agriculture, education, um, financial inclusion, all of these sort of impact categories, as we call them, that we feel really could benefit from tokenomics, digital decentralized finance, which is now becoming known as regenerative finance for those who are interested in how the crypto economy can benefit people and communities and causes that each of us cares about. So next slide, please. Great. So what's emerged as we've convened and gotten our feet wet in the space and gotten to know one another is that there's lots of folks working in various verticals and getting to understand what does it mean to DAO, and what feels essential is a mechanism by which we can all come together, find support, direction to facilitate everyone's kind of individual projects in a way, if I can say it that way. And that ACRE DAOs, this is where, in some respects, this idea of the United Nations of DAOs, if you've seen our forum post from the beginning of the month, or if you were on our community call last month, we talked about how might we form a community of DAOs that are members, so that impact DAOs themselves are actually the members of ACRE DAOs, and we have this kind of DAO to DAO federation in a sense, and that we work on projects together. We work on things that will help each of us in our own work and with our own communities not reinvent the wheel, understand best practices, not only in the realm of whatever particular discipline, if it's climate or carbon credits, or if it's something else in terms of technology, other domains, but also what does governance really mean? What are the right incentives for our work? How are we going to bridge all of the communities that we're working with who are not necessarily involved in the technology, but we want the technology to help them. So what are those common themes or those common challenges? What's some of the common infrastructure that we can build together? And the concept of a permissionless income protocol, this doer money DAO, is one such idea for kind of a shared mission, a shared currency, really, which is like sort of community currency, which is how we're thinking about doer money, which I can talk about a little bit later. So that's this meme. We want to have a little bit of fun. It's like very serious, trying to save the world, and there's a lot of heavy stuff going on. So we're here. Our vibes are just kind of to play around, have a bit of fun with it, with internet culture. So next slide, please. And to that end, we have been, hanging out with some other Web3 communities in the space, Forefront, Coinvise, and Radar. There was a hackathon a couple of weeks ago that we participated in, and it was to talk about best practices in social token communities. So again, for anyone on the call who's sort of new to Web3, this idea of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, there's an existing model that's come largely out of decentralized finance, in a sense, and this idea of protocols that, MakerDAO is one I'm very familiar with, a protocol that allows people to deposit collateral and borrow a stable coin, and this is algorithmically done. And permissionless peer-to-peer, and those types of projects were some of the earlier kinds of DAOs. But in more recent years, we've seen this emergence of social space and social DAOs, or tokenized communities, where there may not be a protocol that's at the core and at the center of what people are building and deciding about, but it could just be getting together around being creative. You've seen a lot in the space of artists using NFTs. And so we find that in regenerative economy, or impact really seems to be at this interesting intersection of both the DeFi landscape in terms of DAOs and this social DAO, social token movement. And since really, as a investment club, or people on this call and in this community interested in how finance and how capital and how investments and money can be restructured and reimagined to fund sustainable business models for impact. We're looking at both what's happening in DeFi and that sort of protocol tokenomics governance mechanism, but also what's happening on the social side. So it's been really exciting to get to know the leaders on the social side of things and what they're building. It's a very different vibe, very different approach, and different kind of tool set and thinking than what you might see with your DeFi protocols. And somewhere in the middle, I think we're really going to find the sweet spot for what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to support the creation of financial products and markets that will funnel assets, will funnel wealth, will funnel liquidity to projects and entrepreneurs and things that are really going to change the world and the lives for all people for the better. And so a big part of, I think, this season is that we can spend time, each of us who are members of ACRE DAOs, being involved in other communities, learning from those communities, building those relationships, and that's really going to be invaluable to what we build together. So really excited, and you can check out the link tree that I posted in the chat to get links to all these tweets and all of this information. But the ACRE DAOs is a big hit. This idea of a constellation, a federation, a community of impact DAOs that are working together to reimagine impact investing won second place, and we received a prize of $1,000 in USDC stablecoins. And we also won 2 of the bounties for our innovation in governance. And so, we've got quite a unique approach to governance involving, our 2 token model. And so that was very well received. And from the Radar community, we received a reward for an idea for our use of a coordinate circle as a tool for recording and sharing community knowledge. So all of those assets that we won for this hackathon are held in the ACRE DAOs wallet. So we're starting to build a little bit of a treasury. We haven't raised capital for the community, but as we're active and participating and just sort of existing and growing, we've got a little tiny treasury starting, which is nice. And what's really nice is that, in addition to the USDC, which is obviously, kind of terrific, is to hold the tokens of other communities. So, this idea of communities supporting each other with token exchanges is a huge idea that's emerging. There's protocols that are specifically working on Prime DAO is one such community specifically working on ways that tokenized communities can really bootstrap their liquidity. and preserve the kind of freedom and flexibility that we have when it's all very grassroots, when it's us who are doing the work, who are part of the communities that are able to, give all of the direction. Once you have significant venture investing or outside investors, it can change some of the dynamics. So we're very much looking at all of these emerging models and experiments with how communities are bootstrapping their resources for use in furthering their goals. So we're really excited for the support and to get to know these other leading communities in the space. Next slide, please. And so as part of that hackathon with Coinvise, and Coinvise is building a terrific kind of user interface. We're getting now a little bit further down the line in terms of coordinating in a little bit more of a friendly, slick way. And so we've created a profile for our community on Coinvise. And again, that's a link in the link tree to that. And that's somewhere where you can connect your wallet, you can follow along ACRE DAOs, and there's a bunch of other social communities also on the platform that if you're members or you hold those tokens, you can keep track all in one place. And there's different modules that allow us to interact and socialize. And one of them is the refi army circle, giving circle. Next slide, please. So one of our experiments, you may have seen this hopefully on Twitter, you've seen it posted, that we wanted to celebrate the work that our community members, both those who hold tokens and also just this wider community, this ecosystem of worker bees who are pioneering in Web3, pioneering this new model of decentralized coordination and using Coordinape, which is an interesting app that allows groups of people to reward and thank colleagues, team members for work that they're doing. And so part of the work of the hackathon was to create this circle and invite folks in refi and impact to participate. And anyone who joins as a contributor is able to give away 10,000 ACRE tokens on the Polygon network. So just to back up a little bit, we have an ERC20 token, a fixed supply that's been created to kind of seed our activity in the community. And through this Coinvise platform, we were able to sort of mint or transfer, port a portion of our tokens, bridge them, that's the word. We're able to bridge them over to Polygon. And Polygon is a layer 2 network built on Ethereum, but you probably know it's negligible in terms of fees. And a lot of folks, enjoy using Polygon and other protocols besides, the ERC20, which requires gas to transfer. So as part of our experiment, we're all about experimenting right now, experimenting with the tools, experimenting with ways to make engagement fun. We have put a portion of our token supply over on Polygon, and those are the tokens that are being given away as part of the Coordinape circle. So there's a blog post that I put together. It's pretty cumbersome, to be perfectly honest. It's a lot of steps, but hopefully, we've had a bunch of folks sign up, so we should have a nice little map, a little circle that shows some people in the ecosystem who are working in the space. And in the epoch of this giving circle ends in 2 days. So you have 2 more days if you want to check that out. And join as a contributor, which allows you to give away 10,000 ACRE tokens to anyone that you want to nominate that you've worked on in any project really that's connected to impact and regenerative economy. Even if they're not in Web3, even if it's not a crypto project, it could be an interesting way to get people to play around with some of our tools in the space. Next slide. And yeah, so just we were featured in the Refi DAO Roundup, and if you haven't, I highly suggest giving Refi DAO a follow. It is a great community. Also, we kind of launched similarly around the same time. This energy around regenerative finance seemed to kick into a new gear in December, and so that's a great place to see what other DAOs are doing. They've got a great podcast, so we're pleased that we got a shout out in their publication last week. Next slide. So here is a slide of a rough roadmap for this season, and we shared this last month. And the addition here in yellow is something called a playbook for using impact DAOs to change the world. So coming up in May, something that I'm going to introduce on the forum, and I have a link to it in the link tree, is a very comprehensive and ambitious playbook for how to rapidly launch a family of DAOs. Is kind of remarkable, a beautiful fit for where we are in our journey of in April having socialized this idea of a United Nations of DAOs and beginning to look at launching Do or Money DAO as a kind of sub DAO of ACRE DAOs, or a child DAO. The playbook uses the language of child DAOs. And over the next month, be great to get some folks to take a look at this playbook and how we might adopt it for ACRE DAOs and use it to form a kind of a parent DAO. And this playbook is brilliant, and it's from some very thoughtful people at Orca Protocol have put this together. And this would be our how, right? So if we all agree that this vision of a community of impact DAOs is interesting, the next question is like sort of exactly how, and what are some tokenomics around that? What's the governance going to be around that? And as fun as maybe the proposal that I put together that was all memes from last month, maybe, I mean, I thought it was fun. I don't know if you guys think it was any good, but it's not too specific about, okay, well, what exactly do we do? So love to have you all take a look at this playbook. And I'm going to be speaking with the Orca Protocol community next Tuesday. I'll share that in the Discord. Over in their Discord server, they've invited me to talk about ACRE DAOs and what we're up to. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to dive in on the playbook and think about what it would mean for us to actually launch this. It's very original idea, and no one's tried it yet. There are communities that have tried aspects of it, but we would be the first to sort of adopt it and see how it works. And I think it's pretty interesting. So check that out in the link tree, and then keep an eye out next week in the forum for kind of a more detailed post on that and where we go from here. So that's coming up in May, is to take a look at the playbook and, in the context of the playbook, talk about, our broader charter and this transition that Acre Invest is looking to do. So, that my company is looking to take, what we've gifted, in a sense, the community in terms of, the token supply and a few things to help, kind of bootstrap the community, transferring that to a governance mechanism that's community controlled. And, where does this idea of raising a trust fund that would be governed and directed by a council of DAOs. And, again, these ideas that we've started to socialize over the past several of weeks in the community fit really nicely with the playbook, and we could probably, seamlessly execute them together. So excited about that. And yeah, so that's sort of what's coming up for May and for June. July. Yeah, really. Yeah, okay, exactly. So this whole season is, yeah, about our foundation of building the core team that, want to really do the founders level work, making those key decisions about our initial plans for not just the ACRE token that we have now, that's kind of like this community currency and novelty, but really, what does raising capital to fund our activities and to fund the mechanism that we've also talked about with the ACRE token, which is that in the future, people who do regenerative economy work, who are contributors to all of our DAOs, are able to be compensated in ACRE tokens for their work, and that those ACRE tokens can be converted to actual liquid stable coins. So all of the mechanisms and incentives that need to go into place for that to become a reality, that's a foundation that will allow us to more rapidly scale support for those of us in the community who already have DAOs or communities that have started, those who are DAO curious, and looking to start communities from scratch, and just other ways that we can support both the financial incentives, the social incentives, and then, I think governance as well. At the end of the day, the thing that we all have in common in the space, and this applies to both the social elements of which we're jamming, but also the financial piece, right? I mean, the finance, it is regenerative finance. So we also really want to understand and be applying best practices that our communities can utilize, right? And so that those people who want to make a difference in a particular location, in a particular area, can focus on the work that they're most passionate about or most skilled to do, and that through ACRE DAOs, you can leverage some of the heavy lifting around, all right, well, what are some of the best assets to think about using? What are some of the best mechanisms for fundraising, et cetera? And so ACRE DAOs can be that hub that is, really like a think tank expert around these issues of tokenomics and governance and financial and social incentives. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so this, yeah, okay, I've talked about this, the Doer Money DAO as a first sub DAO or first child DAO project that we'd work on. Next slide. And so this is just a bit of a diagram. This is a slide that's been out there for a while, but I thought it would be helpful to take a look at again, just showing ACRE DAOs being a tokenized community. And again, we're at this beginning initial stages of putting a structure in place that will allow us to support launching 1,000 impact DAOs over the next 1,000 days, which is 3 years. Next slide. And this may be a little bit, depending on your device, hard to see, but yeah, so engagement, we have POAPs. So we try to have POAPs for all of our calls and events. And this time we're going to do try something a little bit different. There's a QR code that I'm going to show at the end, and you should be able to scan it, and it'll be posted afterwards. So if you aren't able to catch the scan while we're speaking in the call, you will be able to grab it later. And we have weekly calls on Tuesdays. Oh, I'm skipping ahead, but right. So joining, right. So all of you, I think, probably have tokens, and we're doing rolling admission. So if there's anyone that you think would be interested in being a part and being a token holder, that's an open process. It doesn't cost anything. You don't have to have Ethereum in your wallet. There's no transaction. It's just a pure airdrop once you sign up on the member portal. And we do those airdrops every Monday. Following us on Twitter and Discord. And yes, we're having weekly core committee meetings on Tuesdays. That's like kind of like an office hour. So it's a time that you can always check in, catch up with what's going on, get involved in something more actively that's on our plate. And in the afternoons at 3 p.m., we have a chat about DeFi governance, specifically the Maker DAO protocol and some of the things that are happening there in terms of decentralized finance and governance. So there's a pinned note in the announcements channel that has links to our Google Calendar and all the information about how to join those meetings. And yeah, okay, so then also playbook. Right, a snapshot vote. So we'll be putting a vote together on Snapshot about the adoption of the playbook and the overall vision around ACRE DAOs serving as a community of DAOs, helping to support the launch of a community of impact DAOs. And it'll be, I think, interesting to have this method of recording everyone's, views or approval or agreement with the approach. And that'll be a snapshot vote that's open for the whole season. It's not governance per se, right? I mean, but we're still just at this building consensus. And I think experimenting to some extent with these tools and with these norms of DAOs, such as they are today, and seeing, what feels right for us. And the last thing I want to mention is a residency that's coming up that our friends at Forefront have launched. And again, there's a link in I think I posted also a link in the general channel yesterday. But this is terrific. It's like $4,000 and it's for creators. So creators meaning anyone who's creating something in Web3. So if you're in a DAO or wanting to start a DAO or have an idea, this could be a great opportunity to get some support around what you're building. And so if anyone's interested in that, let me know and I will be happy to make like a direct intro on that. Let's see, next slide. Okay, yay, that's the last slide. I've talked for a long time, too long. That's the QR code that will give you access to your POAP for today. And that's all I had prepared. So I'd love to open it up and